Hello, I am Stephen Abrams from the California Digital Library, and welcome to the panel. I think we're going to have very interesting presentations and hopefully some now extended discussions about this topic. The way we're going to have things arranged is we're each going to give a fairly brief presentation, somewhere about, well, we were planning on 10 minutes, but I guess we can now talk a little bit slower. I'll start things off by giving somewhat of an overview about web archiving problems and opportunities. There are lots of both, unfortunately and fortunately. And then I will turn it over to Martin Klein from the Los Alamos National Laboratory, who will be talking about Memento. Jimmy Lin from the University of Maryland will be talking about Workbase. And then finally, Michael Nelson from Old Dominion University, who will be talking about assessing the quality of web archives. And then, as Abby said, we'll have hopefully some extended time for your questions, and hopefully we'll get some discussion and back and forth going with you. So to begin with, why web archiving? Why is this an important thing? I think certainly for all of us who are working for cultural heritage or other types of memory institutions, web archiving is merely the continuation of our long-standing mission to collect, preserve, and provide access to both the scholarly record and our common cultural patrimony. Since the web has really become the publishing platform of choice, it's where the content is, and naturally we as collecting institutions have to follow that content. But there's always a but. The problem is that the web is really not the web anymore. What do I mean by that? It has really changed in just phenomenal ways since what was originally conceived of 25 years ago as merely just a giant document retrieval system. And what we're really looking at now is the web as a giant distributed programming environment. The web browser is turned into a virtual machine. The language of choice is now JavaScript rather than HTML. We've made a really incredibly significant change in terms of the experiential aspect of the web. It used to be that we all saw a very common experience of a given website, and now everything is basically personalized. So the web that I collect is probably not the web that you were actually seeing, even if we were, even there was a certain amount of simultaneity about those two events. While we've gone and we've tried to weather the transition from the web of documents to the web of semantic concepts, now we're looking at this other transformation to the web of things. And I certainly have no real idea about what it means to try to archive a web of things. There are a number of other issues that immediately come to mind. This is certainly not the exhaustive list. One is that crawlers don't act like browsers. The state-of-the-art way to collect the web is you deploy a farm of these robotic crawlers that go out, they look at web pages, extract links, follow the links, grab whatever they find, and keep on going. That's not exactly how people act when they are going and they are navigating the web. In particular, people can fill out forms with useful information and get things back. People can avoid getting into infinite loops of crawler traps and things of that sort. So it's really important that we're able to continually enhance the capture technology so that we have these robotic agents that are going to be able to act much more like people, so that the preserved experience more tightly couples to what an individual would have. Being responsive to very time-sensitive content. So Abby took my little anecdote that I was going to bring up about the blog post that showed up early last Thursday morning, purporting to be from Igor Strelkov, the Ukrainian separatist leader, claiming that they had shot down a Ukrainian military aircraft. That post, well, maybe not so mysteriously, that disappeared from that social media website after a couple of hours. But very fortuitously, the Internet Archive has been very, very aggressive in capturing materials related to events in the Ukraine, and actually has the before and after version of that website. So it's very important that we, in collecting institutions, take a really hard look at our collection development policies, and particularly our procedures, and figure out ways to be much more responsive to extraordinarily fast-moving events on the web, so that we're able to capture sort of history in the making, or in the remaking, as this case may have been. Web archives certainly inherit all of the problems that we're familiar with regarding rights to collect materials, to do things with it. And in some ways, the web, there's some unique aspects to this. Many of you are probably aware that the W3C has incorporated something called the encrypted media extension, EME, into the standard definition of HTML5. Now, while EME is not a DRM per se, what it does do is it provides a standardized container in which a content owner can insert DRM mechanisms into content streams. And all that entails, which, since it is a formal DRM mechanism, that means the Millennium Copyright Act comes into play. So we need to figure out ways to be able to overcome that, or to work with content providers to collect the materials that we're interested in. It is still all too difficult to try to integrate web archives into our other traditional management and discovery services. Obviously, this has the potential to lead to highly siloed content, which is, makes for very difficult discovery by our user communities. And of course, we're all aware that web archives tend to be really big. And it's big in ways that introduces various stressors to archiving institutions. Certainly for storage capacity, trying to make sure that we are provisioned with appropriate capacity to deal with this can be a problem. Trying to index this material to drive effective discovery takes a lot of computing horsepower. Because of this size, we probably need to consider very strongly whether we want to deduplicate the material that we're collecting, which tends to have quite a bit of duplicative content if you are repeatedly crawling the same set of websites. And of course, you need the resources to do all that, both in terms of the technological and financial, but also in terms of staffing. Trying to find experienced staff people to work on web archiving projects is very difficult. In fact, we're trying to hire one right now, so if you're interested, you can come see me. We heard a lot yesterday and just a little bit earlier this afternoon about research data curation, and I think the web can play a very strong role in effective management of research data. And for some disciplines, the web itself is a primary research data object. But I think there's little awareness within the scholarly community about the role that web archives can play. Because of that, we don't have a lot of good use cases at hand. That makes it difficult for us to build appropriate tools. Also, I think another consequence of web scale is that it may tend to break the traditional sort of workflow that we're all familiar with. You find something online, you download it locally, you mess around with it on your desktop, on your server. When you're talking about gigabyte or certainly terabyte scale collections, that is no longer, may not be feasible. So I think we need to start thinking much more strongly about providing sort of programmatic access and business models to support it for in situ manipulation of web archives. Clearly, there are plenty of opportunities for technological enhancement, certainly in the area of better capture mechanisms. Quite frankly, we're just not capable today of capturing what it is our curators want to get. Social media in particular tends to be really difficult in this regard. Certainly, we also need better discovery modalities. The Wayback Machine is great if you know a URL and a date, but if you want to do keyword searching or fielded textual searching, that still is fairly difficult to do. I think there's also opportunities for collective action. Certainly, web archiving institutions should be talking to each other to try to put into place complementary collection development policies to avoid very expensive duplicative work. We should probably try to have some sort of coordinated action to support the key bits of technology that we are all using. And in fact, we may be time to consider whether we should have some sort of centralized activities to support this technology, and perhaps even the operation of web archives. And perhaps we should be thinking about a Hadi Trust-like organization where we are sort of co-locating this web material. And finally, I think there's a lot of opportunities to enlist the services of web archiving consumers, particularly with regard to selection of materials, augmenting the description of those materials, and for performing QA on captured materials. So that went by really quickly, and in many ways I had the easy job. I sort of just had to tell you about all the things that were wrong. Nothing is easier than telling you what's wrong. But don't despair, because my colleagues are now going to tell you about at least 3 ways in which you should actually be feeling optimistic about the future of web archiving. Thank you. So we'll start with